All right, welcome back everyone. This again is the Diatone Mamba Mini 3-inch build. We just finished dealing with the receiver and getting the motor spinning and all of our modes configured, so we're really all good there. What we have left to do is the VTX and the camera. Now, the camera is this Runcam hybrid, so it's got some particularities to it that we have to go through, so it's going to be a little bit more involved with this. I was going to do a video on just the VTX, but then I realized that, well, that's just going to be me soldering this on here. We could really do a video on, how to get in and configure, work with smart audio through the goggles, but I can't really do anything if I don't have the camera. So this is a video on video. So we'll get this thing soldered on first. So this is not going to be any big deal exactly, other than, hey, where does all this go? I prefer to do this. So I'll zoom in. So then if you look right here, this is our receiver. And then according to our documentation, we have, right after this, we've got our VTX video right here. So this is the main video signal. And then after this right here is smart audio. And then after that is there are some ground and some power, but it's 5 volts. And the VTX needs at least 7 to operate. So we need to find some battery power. Now, if you look around here, there's nothing, it doesn't say VBAT anywhere on the documentation, but we do have some VSS pins. And you're going to find that over here. So right over here, there's actually just a little bit of a silk screened white line here, kind of barricading this off right there. And the one on the furthest outside here, this is power and this is ground. And so this is what I'm going to use for power for the video transmitter over there, okay? So because the VCC is actually battery bypass. And if you want to check it, go ahead and plug everything back in and grab your multimeter and test it. You'll find out that that is battery power. There is another one over here. Let's see, so it's right, this is ground, and then right here is, you can barely see what I'm pointing at here, but just trust me, it's right here next to this clip. There's a VCC right there. But when you plug in the board-to-board interconnect, then it is right over the top and it hits it. You could solder underneath if you needed to, but we've got this one over here, nice and accessible, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just solder this on here really quick, get this done and out of the way, and get to the bigger point, which is soldering in and dealing with and configuring and programming our fancy camera. So then let's take this camera here one piece at a time. What we'll do first is focus on these right here. So these I've already got these soldered on, and you have this little connector right here, which is pretty nice as well. So what I'm going to do is disconnect this to get this out of the way, because I don't want to be, wiggling this all over the place and worry about breaking wires. So I can just disconnect this. But no, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but here's our power, ground, and signal, right? So same thing over here. So we'll move this out of the way and bring our board back, and then we'll go about soldering this onto here. So then if you look at our documentation for the Mamba, what we'll find is right after the ground pad and the 5 volts, we've got camera. I mean, you could use that ground and 5 volts if you like. But I'm going to go ahead and use these 3 on the end. So we're going to have our camera, and then we're going to have our ground, and then the 5 volts right there. So we'll get those tinned up and connect those wires next. I went ahead and moved over to the other bench because I've got a lot better lighting over here, so sorry about however bad that first part of this looked. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and connect our flight control board. That would help. So I want to deal with these TX and RX pads up at the top of our camera board. Everything's kind of splayed out because if I mount this, what I want to do is I want to mount this with the buttons up. You can mount it either way. It's really not going to matter too much, but from previous experience, it's marginal, but I've noticed that on the underside or on this side of the board, there's a few more components that are kind of close to the ring here of the hole. And when you go to put the fastener down on here, the nut, you're going to hit these, okay? You might smash them with the wrench as you're trying to tighten it. But even though it's a little bit more clear, we've still got components everywhere. There's a cap over here. There's something, I don't know, regulator, op amp or something over there. There's this little dude here, some kind of transistor or something. There's another thingamabob up there. Possibly even the switch itself right here might interfere. So you're going to have to be careful, really careful with this. And I recommend if you have maybe a 3D printer or something, or maybe you could buy some of these, get some spacers to put on here. Put some spacers up on top, and then you should, once you get this on here, you should have enough clearance to be able to still put a nut on here, and then you can tighten the nut without having to get your nut driver or the nut itself down here with all the parts, right? So keep that in mind. Anyways, I'm going to keep it off the side for right now, because if this is going to be the top, the thing that I'm worried about is over here. It's on the other side. So I will plug in our camera power and ground that we did previously. And then what I'm going to do, here's the setup of what's going to happen, hopefully. I was thinking about how I can show you how to do all this, and the best thing to explain this whole process with the TX and the RX, how they have this this way that they switch from UART to the little joystick. The best way to show that is going to be for me to plug in and get video in my goggles, and then just using the stick commands, I can get into the camera and I can turn on the DVR of my goggles, and then I can show you what you're supposed to do or what that's supposed to look like, okay? So I will go get my goggles, try to get this all set up. I'll probably get it set up first to where I know it's going to work, and then I will turn the camera back on and show you guys as well. All right, let's see if we can get this to work. So here is the card as it is. This is the camera board default. There's no wire soldered to TX and RX yet. There's no jumper between. Everything's just as it is, right? So we're seeing fine. This is on A1. Do a search, you'll find it. So I'm going to unplug this. Notice up at the top, it says card error, because that's just saying that our camera doesn't have an SD card in it. That's no big deal. But look up in the top left-hand corner, the other side from card error, okay? So I'm going to unplug the battery and then plug it back in. Now watch, boot up, beta flight, all this, jabba, 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 and then there. Joystick control, see that in the top left? And then it goes to NTSC, and then it should just go away. So that's what you have to change, because right now it's saying that it is able to be configured. The camera is able to be configured by the little D-pad joystick that comes with it, okay? So we're going to go back to the bench and we're going to solder the wires onto the TX and the RX, but we're going to leave them long, and we're going to strip the ends, and then we're going to twist them together. We'll do this a few different times just to show you how it flips back and forth, okay? So to the bench. Okay, we'll unplug the battery for now, and I'm going to find a wire to solder onto here, okay? So let me, how about I disconnect this and I'll move it around so I can get a close-up. You can see what I'm doing here. These pads are pretty damn small, okay? And they're pretty fragile, so be careful how you treat them. Solder easily to them, you know, make sure you can get in, get out, don't heat them up too much, and definitely don't pull on them too much because you rip the entire pad off. That has been done. Then now we have our wires right here, so we can easily twist these together. Then the idea is, at least at this point in principle, that if I twist these together, turn the thing on, instead of being a joystick, it should flip to UART. Then if I leave it twisted, it will flip back at next reboot, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and I want to take a look at all of that as well, so we can just see for sure how it works. Now, we'll go ahead and grab our quad back, plug this in, and then we'll go ahead and get the goggles and battery and everything going on here and see what we see. All right, I think we are all ready to go. I've got the DVR going in the goggles, I've got my lapel mic working, I've got the video on. Everything is booted up, the battery is plugged in right now. So let's go ahead and unplug this right now, because you can't see anything on the camera. I mean, you can't see the UART or the joystick control. So we'll take this and we'll twist this together. I probably could have left them a little bit longer, but there you go. So they're hanging out there. Make sure nothing touches anything anywhere. I've got a lot of danglies. Then goggles are on. They're on channel A1. So we'll go ahead and boot this up and take a look at what we get. Beta flight. And now, you see, UART control in the top left. So at this point in time, you could unplug the battery and then untwist your wires and it will stay in UART mode. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reboot it now and leave the wire twisted so you can see that it does work exactly the way they say that it's supposed to. So do it again, boot up, beta flight. Now it's joystick control. You see? So if you leave the thing twisted, if it's twisted, those two pads are touching during the boot up process, it will flip whatever state it was in previously, okay? So we're going to reboot it one more time to get it back into UART mode. Beta flight. UART control. You see? So we will go ahead and unplug the thing now, and we'll untwist it, and we'll leave it untwisted, and now we'll plug it in again, because we want to make sure that it stays at UART. And still on UART. One more time. One more time. One more time. Yep. And that's it. You see? So it's not terribly too bad. It's just kind of strange. Okay? So we'll go ahead and turn everything off, and then we can think about dealing with these wires. Okay, so these wires are stripped and tinned, cut to the proper length. I'm going to go ahead and leave them long. I just had this kind of thought. The last one I did, I think I made it a little bit shorter, but just in case I need to flip that around, I can't imagine that's ever going to happen. Maybe something gets reset. I've got the wires long in case maybe I want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll turn things around here, get zoomed in, and we'll tin these pads, solder these on here. Now, before I do this though, big thing to remember, as you're on autopilot of S bus goes to S bus, smart port goes to smart port, TX goes to TX. Don't do that. Remember that this thing up here, the TX is going to the RX, and the RX here is going to the TX. Okay, go ahead and get in here. You're not going to be able to see this. There, so that's TX. RX, don't burn that connector right there. Get that a little bit more. Okay, so the one on the outside here, TX, the one on the inside is RX. So I'll go ahead and stop right here. There's more to do with this. There's more to do with the camera and such, but I just want to put a kind of a period on this right now and say the thing is soldered, the board is soldered, everything's on here. The basics of our camera board are functioning properly, but what we want to do, other things we need to do, well, we need to get some spacers on this. We need to figure out how to get this all installed. I have a feeling I'm probably going to 3D print something for that. And we need to test that the camera works, but I don't want to tack that onto this video right now, because what I'm going to do is we'll get an SD card, we'll slap it in here, and then we're going to configure it to function with the switches on our transmitter, which means we're going to have to go into modes and Betaflight, and we're going to have to do some things in there, and then we should be able to, whenever we want, flick a switch, and then we'll be able to record rather than hitting the button on the board and recording your whole flight. You can just record the event that you want, and that's going to be extra great, okay? And then probably another video of just the assembly, because I know from the last one of these that we built, there is not very much space, and we've got a big fatty camera here that we've got to stuff in. We don't have a whole lot of room for everything else, so I end up basically clipping some of the carbon away and zip tying things in crazy fashion. So we'll do that in probably the video after the next.